Hi again, Professor Brennan here. So this is for argumentation class. This will be the final video about policy debate. I'm basically just covering kind of our general debate structure for this particular lecture. And we have talked about kind of the order of the debate, and now we're going to get into a little bit more detail about each position in that particular type of general policy debate. Okay, let's go directly to the PowerPoint. This is number three video. Okay, here we are. So I'm going to kind of get into these roles and kind of explain, what am I talking about first affirmative, right? So let's go back to that. We've got Jane and Jack, right? Jane and Jack and Sam and Shelley. Hopefully that helps you. I just keep those same letters the same. So Jane was a first affirmative, Jack was second affirmative, Sam was first opposition, and Shelley was second opposition. So first affirmative has that they're building their argument, right? What we call the first constructive speech. It's prepared before the debate, and it is generally read word for word, okay? It must meet the burden of the proposition. So the proposition is what you all have agreed on, right? You've agreed on something should change, whatever it is should change, and you're either arguing for that change or against it. But the first affirmative's job is to meet that burden. You have to say why it needs to be changed. That must be met in the first affirmative. Did they meet that burden? Must include all four stock issues. Now, the person who's doing the cross, as they're listening to the first affirmative, in this case, it's the second opposition, the last person that's going to give their speech in the debate, they get to start formulating those questions. And those questions are designed for clarification, which means to understand better what it is, and also to be used to set up their own team's arguments. So you can do this and ask questions in a way to show maybe the flaws or what's missing to build. It actually sets up a question in the mind of the audience about their proposition. So then when it's your turn, and it won't be your turn specifically, it'll be the first opposition's turn to give their side of the debate, then they will have already kind of entered that kind of thought, those ideas through the questions, and that won't be new information. It'll just reiterate kind of what their position is. So clarification, let's just go on this for a minute. Clarification means it could be meaning understanding the words, right? We've talked about that. The words in a debate, they're important. Defining those words, what does it mean? And it could also mean just maybe the proposition is the way they said it was lousy and you didn't really hear, or you want to ask them about, well, who was the agent, or who are you blaming? Can you repeat your cure again? Whatever it is. You really want to know where the other person stands. Okay, now it's Sam's turn, right? First opposition. He's going to present his prepared arguments, and he has to present all four stock issues on his side. Excuse me so much. And then the cross is by the first affirmative, which is Jane, right? So Jane, she formulates the questions to ask, and the questions are designed for clarification and to set up their own team's arguments, or even to set it up to kind of consolidate. Okay, second affirmative, responsible for presenting a minimum of the two stock issues that have not been presented by 1A, meaning first affirmative. So maybe they're going to add more. Actually, this should be responsible for presenting at least if the first affirmative wasn't able to present all of their stock issues, then the second affirmative needs to finish that up. Okay, the full argument. But they can also repeat stock issues with new information. The other part of the time should be spent refuting all of the first oppositions. That means 1-0, not 10. First opposition's arguments. So this is the first time you get to see that there might be some refuting in this. Okay? It's the last constructive speech for the affirmative. Okay. Cross-exam by first opposition. Same thing, clarification, and to help them set up their own team's arguments. Okay. Second opposition. Responsible for refuting all the affirmative's arguments. Okay. So they're going to point out how they're all wrong. And they can also use stock issues with this as well. Utilize prepared material and adapts the material presented by affirmative. So whatever they have, they need to adapt to what they've heard the affirmative say. So the person you have in this role needs to be very flexible and easy to adapt in situations. Oftentimes you think of the second person as not being the leader, but I'm telling you, the second person in the opposition side than the negative has a much harder row to toe than roll to toe than actually the first opposition. This is hard to do. So keep that in mind when you all are figuring each other's roles out. Cross-examination by second affirmative formulates the questions. Same thing. Designed for clarification and to set up that team's arguments. All right. Oh my gosh, we're done already. So as you can see, it's almost like tossing a ball, right? We're tossing the ball back and forth depending on how long you keep the ball. Each of these constructive arguments, I'm going to have in a separate video about refutation. Each of these second arguments, separate ones, not the cross, they're like constructive arguments. Pretty much second opposition is the most adaptable piece where you really need to adapt, but you have to have prepared material, adapt to what the affirmative says. You really have to try to think about it. Just even if you watch those shows on the defense, they have to kind of think about how is the prosecutor going to think. So you have to think about, well, what is affirmative? You both know what the policy is, so you've had access to information and research. You should have some idea of how you think they might argue this. Like if you were going to argue it, what would you do? Okay. Alrighty. That's it. The next thing we'll talk about is refutation. So hang in. I'll see you later. You all have a great day. Bye.